okay? I mean, we went off the rails on a crazy train. Ozzy Osbourne couldn't have said it any better himself. And I guess nobody's going to Walmart anymore either, so. Anyway, I've done some polling lately, quite a bit actually, and you guys might be surprised, but it's an overwhelming majority around here, people for masks. Overwhelming. So we'll just call them the silent majority, okay? All right, so I sat over there all day and didn't say a word.
You're talking the whole
Anyway,
time.
I really hate doing this too because I've been receiving some threats lately, but here goes. My name is Nathan Horseman. I live at 2550 State Highway 248, Branson. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Good evening now. Council and citizens of Branson, I come before you today in full support of a mask ordinance for the city of Branson. It has been 24 days since I entered these chambers for the first time on the 23rd of June. At that time, Taney County had recorded 33 cases of COVID-19 and 2 unfortunate deaths. We currently sit at 146 cases. The number went up as we were sitting here today. And 3 deaths, according to the State of Missouri dashboard. That is 109 new cases of COVID-19 in just a little over 3 weeks. One can only imagine how many of those 109 citizens would have not contracted this virus had we enacted a mask ordinance then. But unless we go to the Celebrity Car Museum and borrow a souped-up DeLorean, we unfortunately cannot go back in time. The time for a mask ordinance is now. So let's start with an actual facts. Fact. Masks are highly recommended by the CDC, the WHO, and our own Taney County Health Department. Fact. Masks are also recommended by both major healthcare providers in the area. Fact. Wearing a mask will not cause you to breathe dangerous levels of carbon monoxide. Fact. This is not the flu. This is much worse than the flu. Fact. The only thing we have to slow the spread of COVID-19 right now is human behavior. Fact. 3.9% of Americans who have contracted this disease have died. Dead. They're not coming back, they're dead. Fact. 15 to 20% of those are hospitalized or need aggressive care. Fact. There is no evidence that herd immunity is effective. Fact. A mask mandate instituted does not, by law, violate your constitutional right. Throughout this whole process, I've learned a lot. It's amazing what a career restaurant server can do with countless hours, a cell phone, a laptop, and a genuine care for his fellow neighbors. I am humbled with all the help, advice, knowledge, and insight that I have received on this unfortunate journey through this unprecedented time in all of our lives. Within the past week, while doing research for this moment, I have spoken to people I never in a million years would have ever thought I would be speaking to. I have spoken with city and county officials from 10 different communities throughout the states of Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma who already have mask ordinances in place, and they all told me basically the same thing, which is what they mandated masks for the greater good and overall health of the people of their communities. They all agree that masks are not the overall answer to the problem, but in legitimate scientific studies, they are the best and least intrusive weapon to help slow the spread of this highly contagious virus right now. And so far, it is making a difference. I also contacted the offices of Stephen Edwards, CEO of Cox Health, William Mahoney, president of Cox Branson, and Craig McCoy, president of Mercy Hospital, and humbly and kindly requested they all send letters of support on behalf of myself and the citizens of this community to this council in favor of a masking ordinance for the city of Branson. I was also ensured they would do so. It is my hope that you receive those letters. After I saw him speak at the Springfield City Council meeting on Monday, I also reached out requesting support from Dr. Robin Trotman. Anybody doesn't know who he is, he's the leading infectious disease specialist of Cox Health, who I might add recently contributed to the latest CDC study regarding Grape Clips Hair Salon, where 2 mask stylists who were infected with COVID-19 came in direct contact with 139 clients, none of whom tested positive for coronavirus. That study alone proves masking works. Again, it was published by the Centers for Disease Control, and I would imagine right now it's being shared worldwide. Just yesterday, I contacted 2 members of this community who either own or operate some pretty prominent tourist destinations around here. One who gave me not only their support for a mask ordinance, but some very valuable insight and comments, as well as kindly asked me to not drop their name, which I will respectfully oblige. Some of their thoughts, and I quote, The science of mask wearing speaks for itself. Mask wearing doesn't mean there will be no cases, but mask wearing is proven to prevent those who do contract the virus from spreading it to massive amounts of others who are also wearing masks. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a sip of water. They then added this very heartfelt comment, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I remember a time when Americans would do anything to protect the lives of other Americans. We know that this virus is spread through respiratory droplets, and masks minimize that risk. Why would we not want to wear a mask to save a fellow American from pain, suffering, and possibly death? The other was a very nice lady who gave me invaluable information and permission to drop her name, Mrs. Mary Kellogg, owner of the Titanic Museums, which both require masks for all employees and guests, not only here in Branson, but in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee as well. Mrs. Kellogg was very adamant in her stance. Her philosophy: 1, wear a mask. 2, follow the CDC guidelines. 3, her number one priority is protect her employees. Her guests have the freedom to choose whether or not they want to board her ships, but if they choose to do so, they must wear a mask. She laid out for me their company policy when confronted with a guest who wants to enter her attractions unmasked, which is quite simply and calmly: I understand. This is our company policy at this time. If there is still pushback, I understand. This is our company policy at this time. She informed me she has faced very little pushback and gave me another fact: business is booming anyway, and they have encountered more people in favor of their policy than against it. The bottom line for her is the health and safety of her employees as well as her guests. Mr. Mayor, Mr. LeBlanc, please be patient with me here. I spent a lot of research talking to a lot of people about to do this, so I'm going to read it anyway. I have read and heard so many people state that wearing a mask is a violation of their constitutional rights. This is also not true. I know this because I contacted a constitutional lawyer to find out. I will try to convey his opinion without butchering it. If we're talking about the U.S. Constitution and whether or not a mask mandate violates any sort of constitutional right, it does not. The 10th Amendment, which gives all powers not enumerated by the Constitution to the states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. Provides for the states to have police powers. It is the whole basis of our criminal justice and law enforcement system. Among police powers is the power to enact laws and regulations for the good of the public order and public health. With public health, this came to a head in the early 1900s with Jacobson versus Massachusetts, a case that was heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. In Jacobson, there was an outbreak of smallpox in Cambridge. The city passed an ordinance requiring everybody to get vaccinated or revaccinated against smallpox. Jacobson refused and was fined $5. That's about $150 today. He argued that forced vaccination or jailing, fining him for not being vaccinated violated his constitutional rights, arguing that the requirement was unreasonable, arbitrary, and oppressive. The court ruled in favor of Massachusetts, basically saying that in every well-ordered society charged with the duty of conserving the safety of its members, the rights of the individual in respect of his liberty may at times, under the pressure of great dangers, be subjected to such restraint, to be enforced by reasonable regulations as the safety of the general public may demand, and that real liberty for all could not exist under the operation of a principle which recognizes the right of each individual person to use his own, whether in respect of his person or property, regardless of the injury that may be done to others. The court held that mandatory vaccination policy was not unreasonable, arbitrary, or oppressive, as long as it didn't go beyond what was necessary to protect the public health. So yes, there is no constitutional violation under the United States Constitution. As for Missouri statutory law, Missouri allows for city, county, and state health departments to enact mandates for the purposes of protecting the public health. These mandates can be quarantining people, closing business, ordering occupancy limits, etc. The state delegates that authority downwards, so the state DHSS can issue its own orders, but the city and county governments can issue stricter orders if necessary. Jacobson has been repeatedly upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So I presented factual information from health officials, other city governments from 3 different states, doctors, scientists, and a constitutional lawyer. Now please allow me to voice my own opinion. I said this last time. I know masks suck. I know they are uncomfortable. I know they are inconvenient. I do not like wearing them myself. But they have been proven to slow the spread, which is what we are trying to do here today. We are trying to come up with the best way to slow the spread of this virus in our community. Lately, when I have been out, I see more and more people wearing them than ever before, which tells me as time goes by, people are starting to take this more seriously. Major companies are starting to get on board as well, most recently Walmart, along with Costco, Apple, Verizon, Starbucks, Menards, AT&T, Walgreens, CVS, Aldi, Best Buy, and the list goes on. Here in our community, Silver Dollar City was the first to lead the charge, and I haven't heard much of anything negative coming from out there. Just like anything else, people will get used to it. Robert Redfield, director of the CDC, recently said, if all of us would put on a face mask covering for the next 4 to 6 weeks, we could drive this epidemic into the ground. He also said wearing a mask is not a political issue, it is a public health issue. I'm glad to see the president wear a mask this week, and the vice president. We need them to set the example. The bottom line is, masks work. So in closing, I have one comment for the naysayers, anti-maskers, conspiracy theorists, and armchair infectious disease experts, and those of you that believe it violates your constitutional rights if you're mandated to wear one in public. You have spoken out against career scientists, healthcare professionals, even the young professionals in your own community who are out there risking their own lives, working tirelessly every day to save your neighbors who have contracted this virus. Listen to these people and heed their warnings, because I guarantee you, if any of you contract this virus, you will be begging those same people to change to save your lives. Wear the damn mask. Thank you to the